Right, is 7. I haven't done you a video yet, but I thought I'd start to try and do a video for each lesson, just to talk you through the PowerPoint. And I think if, because people are doing work in different ways, the questions that I want you to answer, or the sentences I want you to complete, um, you can either do it straight onto the PowerPoint and just submit that to class charts, or you can do it in a Word document, or you can, if you really want, you can do it in an exercise book and then take a picture. But just make sure it's in focus. I've had a lot of work sent through and it's too blurry. I can't read it very well. Not off any of you for a while, but just bear that in mind. Right, so Greek myths. You should have read the Iliad and the Odyssey, the graphic novels on the Maion. And the whole point about doing this Greek myths module, and it's a real shame about the lockdown, because I was quite excited about teaching this to year 7. So it's something I wanted to do for a few years, but we've not really had the material and the organisation, but we managed to do it. Is a lot of our stories in terms of 21st century and Britain, they are obviously based, a lot of them are based on the Bible, because we're a Christian country, so to speak, and Shakespeare, because he was our first great storyteller. But both of these sources, Shakespeare and the Bible, which provide and most of our literature, are actually based on Greek stories. Now, the main reason for that was because the Greek stories were retold for hundreds of years, and then they were adapted. So the Romans basically took them for themselves and they tweaked them, and then other cultures have taken them on. So the Bible, in fact, is actually based on a lot of Greek stuff, Aristotle. But the main difference between the stories is the gods. Now, what I want to get into next week is, you've been in Frankenstein with Mrs. Laybourne. In Frankenstein, it's a Christian book. It's written in 19th century England, and there's one god. Whereas the Greeks believed in many gods, and they believed in a very different relationship with the gods. And it's that has changed, really. And doing this alongside Frankenstein is really good for showing that. I know it is quite complicated, but when we come back to it in year 8, year 9, year 10, as you get older and more mature, you'll understand it a bit more, and then when we do new things, it'll fit in, and you'll think, oh yeah, that is like the Trojan horse, or that is like Prometheus, or that is like Narcissus, and you'll see that these stories are just being retold in different ways. So, and now that you've read the 2 great Greek epics, that allegedly written by a man called Homer, although they weren't written by him, he would tell them orally, and that's why they were written in poetry, so easy to remember. And then he would teach people, and they would then say it, and then like new people would say it, and it passed down hundreds of years until it was written down. So the gods. The Greeks believed the gods were constantly interfering in their lives and were responsible for not only the things that happened, but even people's actions and moods. I want you to explain that. So this is because. Why? Is it because they couldn't understand what some people did, so they wanted a reason for that action? If you think about the stories, Paris in particular, he steals a woman, he starts a 10-year war just because he wants the prettiest woman in the world. It's a bit irrational, it's a bit irresponsible. So the Greeks believed that because they couldn't explain in people's actions, they couldn't understand what people did, because they needed reasons for why things happened, because they didn't understand things as we do. So just write down anything like that in your own words, or what you think. You can pause the video, and while you do that, and then the next bit. So if you haven't finished, you can just pause this and go back. But Paris is selfish and obsessed with love. The bad decisions he makes are because of the way he gives in to his desires. So we know that's why. Now they think it's because the gods tricked him, because a god promised him the prettiest woman in the world and she put a spell on her to make her fall in love with him, right? But we know it's just because he's selfish. So when you have to think about the other two characters, you've got Achilles. So Achilles he's very strong and powerful, he's also very proud. And you could argue that Achilles drags out the war because he refuses to take part, because he's pride and he's selfish. So Achilles is maybe, his character flaw is that he is too proud or too stubborn, and he won't fight until he gets what he wants. Although obviously in the end he fights because he has personally lost something. And then Odysseus. Odysseus is an interesting character. If you think about the Iliad, forget the Odyssey for now. Odysseus is the clever one. Now he is the one that tricks all the soldiers into staying by telling them that it's a test when King Agamemnon tells them to go home. Now because of tricking them, he carries on the war. Now it takes him 10 years to work out the Trojan horse trick. So he is very clever, but he's too clever for his own good. And because of that, he is also punished by the gods. So just explain, I'll give you an example about Paris, how Achilles and Odysseus, what is actually their personal issue, their personal problem, their personal fault that the Greeks try to explain away by saying it's the gods or interfering. Well, actually, it's just because of their personality. You can pause the video again. And the next one, the Trojan horse. Trojan horse is a really famous metaphor. They still call computer viruses Trojans if it's a virus that you think looks nice, but when you open it, it actually infects your computer. So the Trojan horse is a metaphor of how the Greeks stopped relying on the gods and used their intelligence rather than relying on the gods. So basically Odysseus says, forget this, the gods want us to fight, and they're playing sides and they're interfering in the battle. How about we just use our own cleverness and we'll trick the city of Troy into getting us through the gates. Now because he does this, he's punished, and we see it takes him another 10 years to get home. And that's his journey to get home, is a punishment from the gods that are angry that he basically ignored them and did his own thing. So even if you try and act yourself, the Greeks believe the gods would punish you. So the whole story of the Trojan horse, even though it's successful and they win the war, it teaches the Greeks to be careful about acting on their own, or teaches the Greeks to be careful about being too clever. Because if it upsets the gods, then they will punish you. So you can pause this now if you want, and just want to just finish that. Where there's 3 dots are, that means you have to finish the sentence. And the last one is that both the stories are to teach the Greeks that of all the great things that have happened, that basically, and the Greek heroes are the ones that they try and go against the gods, but when they do, they are punished. So the gods are playing games with them, so they should. There's a few things there that I want you to write. You can either put, is it to accept their fate? Is it to do as they're told? Is it to try and do the right thing? What are they being taught by these stories? Because they were passed down and told for hundreds of years. And the message in both of them is just try and lead a noble, heroic life. And they also believed, obviously, that dying in battle was a great way to die. It's quite an interesting way to get everyone to fight for you, but there you go. Right, so have a think about the 2 stories. If you haven't read them, you need to read them as catch-up work. Fill in your responses. have a think. On Friday we're going to have a look at writing your own little mini epic, and then next week we're going to start to bring in to compare this to Frankenstein. And obviously the main thing with Frankenstein is, again, Victor tries to go against God by making a life, which is what God should do, and because of that he is punished as well. So there's a lot of similarities. Alright, I hope everyone's okay and you're getting on well. Any questions, email me. Do your best and take care.